Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're uncovering the absolute marvel that is Sigiriya. Tucked away deep inside Sri Lanka's lush tropical forests, this 1,500-year-old citadel is, well, it's a masterpiece. A genuine masterpiece of ancient engineering driven by some seriously fierce royal ambition. So let's explore the fascinating story of this legendary fortress in the sky. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this achievement, you've kind of got to picture the landscape. Millions of years ago, violent volcanic activity tore through central Sri Lanka, and it left behind this gigantic sheer rock column. We're talking a natural formation rising almost 200 meters straight up into the sky, above the flat plains below. You can literally see it from miles away. It offered total command over the region, and with those nearly vertical sides, it was a totally terrifying prospect for any attacking army. Not to mention, it must have been a grueling workout for whoever had to haul up the royal groceries. It was absolutely the perfect spot for a stronghold.
But that really begs the question, why? Why would anyone go through the agonizing, just monumental effort of building an incredibly intricate royal city on top of a giant, nearly inaccessible volcanic rock? Think about it. Carving stairways directly into sheer stone, hauling heavy materials hundreds of meters into the clouds. It's no small feat. So what on earth could motivate a ruler to go to those extremes?
Well, that brings us to part one, the usurper king's paranoia. The answer definitely wasn't just a desire for a beautiful view. It actually stems from a deadly royal family rift in the 5th century CE, centering on King Kashyapa, who is, without a doubt, one of Sri Lanka's most controversial anti-heroes. Kashyapa's story reads straight out of a historical thriller. The ancient chronicles tell us he seized the throne by violently overthrowing his own father, King Datusina. But getting the crown was only half the battle, right? Because the rightful heir, his brother, Magallana, actually managed to escape and flee to India. And because of that, Kashyapa was completely consumed by intense paranoia. He was terrified his brother would eventually return with a massive army to take back what was his. So Kashyapa needed an impenetrable stronghold, a secure capital where no army could ever reach him. And that is exactly why he chose the towering rock of Sigiriya. Now, taking a quick look at the timeline here, it's pretty fascinating. The human history of this rock didn't actually start with our paranoid king. Long before royalty showed up, Buddhist monks were already using the natural caves for meditation, going all the way back to the 3rd century BCE. But the dramatic, lavish saga of Kashyapa's royal city, that spans a remarkably brief, intense window. It started in 477 CE and ended in a total collapse just 18 years later. Moving into part 2. Engineering the royal palace. To keep his grip on power during those tense 18 years, Kashyapa's architects didn't just throw up a basic fort. They transformed a harsh natural rock into a magnificent royal city, pulling off a masterclass in ancient urban planning that frankly rivals modern technology. Let's actually walk the path an ancient visitor would have taken, making that intense ascent to the sky. You'd start way down at the lush base, wandering through elaborate, completely symmetrical water gardens. Then, halfway up the climb, you'd encounter the gleaming mirror wall. Next, you'd have to pass through the absolutely colossal Lion Gate before finally reaching the absolute pinnacle, the Sky Palace at the summit. Okay, so the absolute secret weapon to making this whole thing work was their mastery over water. It's just mind-blowing ancient hydraulic engineering. Down at the base, the water gardens are perfectly laid out with symmetrical pools and canals. And here is the craziest part. Using complex underground channels, leveraging natural water pressure and gravity, some of these fountains actually still function today when it rains. Seriously, centuries before modern plumbing. And up at the summit, they built massive reservoirs for fresh water and incredibly sophisticated drainage systems to flawlessly manage the intense monsoon rains. But this fortress wasn't strictly about harsh military defense and clever plumbing. That brings us to section 3, ancient art and treasures. Because halfway up that treacherous climb, the fortress suddenly transforms into a vibrant, breathtaking art gallery. As people made the climb, they'd walk right past what we call the mirror wall. Originally, this rock face was coated in a highly specialized plaster and polished so completely smooth that visitors could literally see their own reflections as they walked by. Over the centuries, travelers and pilgrims walking this exact path scratched inscriptions right into the wall. These writings are over 1,000 years old, and they basically act like ancient tourist reviews. Many of them are just gushing about the breathtaking beauty of Sigiriya and its art. It's essentially one of the oldest examples of recorded tourism in human history. And right above those thousand-year-old reviews are the famous Sigiriya frescoes. These are incredibly colorful, vibrant images painted dizzyingly high up on the rock face. They depict these graceful, enigmatic female figures floating among clouds and flowers. Modern scholars are absolutely captivated by them, and honestly, they still debate who these women actually are. Are they celestial nymphs, or maybe symbolic figures, or royal attendants to the king? Nobody knows for sure. Originally, hundreds of these paintings might have covered the rock. Only a handful survive today, but their preservation is just astounding. Then you hit the Lion Gate, which is just a brilliant illustration of Kashyapa projecting his power. Guarding the very last steepest part of the climb were these enormous stone paws. Now, the giant lion's head that used to be there has long since crumbled away, but those massive, imposing claws are still perfectly intact. Having to actually walk between those terrifying stone claws to go see the king, yeah, that was a very stark reminder of exactly who was in charge. Which leads us to our final chapter, Section 4, the Fall and Rediscovery. Because despite the brilliant water systems, the gorgeous art, and that terrifying lion gate, King Kashyapa just couldn't outrun his fate. The paranoia that built Sigiriya would ultimately be the thing that destroyed it. In 495 CE, Kashyapa's absolute worst nightmare came knocking. His exiled brother Magallana finally returned with an army. And in the battle that followed on the plains below the rock, a really brutal irony unfolded. Kashyapa's ultimate impenetrable fortress proved completely useless. His forces got confused, his army ended up abandoning him, and facing certain defeat, a desperate Kashyapa actually took his own life. After Magallana's victory, the royal capital was immediately packed up and moved somewhere else. Sigiriya completely lost its royal status. That grand sky palace was abandoned, and it eventually just quietly reverted back to a Buddhist monastery. Over the centuries that followed, the dense, creeping jungle just completely swallowed the site, reclaiming the gardens and the rock. It was largely forgotten by the outside world until the 19th century, when European explorers and archaeologists finally started hacking through the brush and excavating. What they uncovered was advanced urban planning that rivaled the greatest ancient civilizations on Earth, firmly cementing Sigiriya's legacy as an unmatched archaeological treasure. Today, Sigiriya isn't just a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is a monument to sheer human creativity, engineering brilliance, and, well, the sometimes tragic heights of royal ambition. As we wrap up this explainer and reflect on this 1,500-year-old masterpiece where nature and architecture just blend perfectly, it leaves us with one incredibly thrilling final thought. If an entire sky palace, complete with functioning fountains and giant stone lions, could literally be swallowed by the jungle and forgotten for centuries, what other breathtaking ancient marvels are still out there just waiting to be found?